You know us. We tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us. We are anonymous.
Program is brought to you in living color.
Kennedy died at 1 p.m.
Upon a time, there were two little girls who
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation. Every day, our senses are being constantly bombarded by subliminal messages that are found in TV, movies, and advertisements. The subliminal messages we are subjected to are unrecognizable by the conscious mind and only recognizable in our subconscious mind. The messages and imagery are passively absorbed and then stored in our subconscious, where propagandists deliberately implant artificial thoughts, which in turn can affect our actions and attitudes later in life. Experiments have shown that less than 1 minute after the viewer begins to watch television, the brain switches from beta-level consciousness, associated with active and logical thought, to alpha level, which is associated with passive acceptance and suggestibility. This is why advertisers spend billions of dollars a year on commercials, as well as product placement within TV shows. Political messages are implanted in fictional TV programs as the relaxed, meditative state of the viewer is receptive to the programming. One example is AMC's Breaking Bad television series, as it depicts a meth villain as a Ron Paul supporter.
I looked him up. It was one of these physicists, one of Hitler's guys, a physicist named Werner Heisenberg. Real cute, huh?
In a basic college level marketing class, in your first year of radio, television, and film, at least for me, and then I've seen some other textbooks and curriculum and found it's also in those, but most RTF schooling teaches you that they have had subliminals for at least 70 years in the United States and Europe. And so, yes, there is subliminal messaging everywhere. It is all over the place. It's an absolute fact that they flicker it at a rate, and that they have the televisions designed for that rate to bring you into a dreamlike state. I mean, it is a fact that within minutes, you go into a dream brainwave when watching television. Go read a book by the father of modern advertising, Edward Bernays, where he calls you a dumb that admits they run your whole life. I've read both his major books. One of them's called Propaganda. Edward Bernays.
The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed. Our minds are molded, our tastes are formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we've never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized.
Now, I also mentioned, too, that a fellow that has been in touch with me for an awful long time, his brother was in the CIA, or is in the CIA. He will never talk about the CIA to him. He'll never give anything away whatsoever, except one bit of advice. He said, never watch the television. Never watch the television. It's the greatest scientific indoctrination tool ever devised. Haven't you figured that out? It's changed the whole culture of nations, not just one nation. Why do you think it was mandatory that everybody in Britain give access to televisions by the government? Why do you think China is under the same program to get everyone with a TV right now? Because they love to have you entertained. Do you really think that? And India is on the same route as well right now too. Most of your ideas and your opinions and how you emulate, because you emulate things, you mimic what you see. As Charles Galton, Darwin and others have said in the past. It becomes you, you become it. And that's what's happened. It's been very, very, very successful. Never watch the television. You can't watch a movie unless you do it critically, if you watch it critically. Not there to enjoy it. Remember what they say, it's your emotions that get you on. And it's interwoven, all these emotional themes all through movies. You're played like a harp. And they embed ideas into you, along with the movies, and predictive programming too, so you'll accept that which is still to come. And you'll behave the same way as the characters in the movie when it comes. Oh well, what can you do? I'll just watch much music or television. Yeah. You're given a mind of your own, and you've got to use it for yourself.
Mind control is one of the tools that they use. How they get you in the condition to be controlled is by using certain signs and symbols, frequencies, tones, colors, shapes, numbers that they hide subconsciously in the frequency of the music and in the 23rd frame, I believe, on TVs and the movies. Look at the movie-going experience. We go in and we buy butter, popcorn, and Coke. And you're buying this chemical called popcorn. Why do I call it a chemical? That butter is not really butter. But when you put it on the popcorn and you put it in the microwave, it becomes a chemical that lulls your subconscious mind to sleep, inducing you and lulling you to sleep. So by the time you walk into a dark movie theater, you're already prepped. You're laying there, you're damn near dozing off. You're focusing in on a screen in the dark with the surround sound, and they're attacking your subconscious mind with frequencies and images. Go to The Arrivals on YouTube. The Arrivals. A-R-R-I-V-A-L-S. The Arrivals. Go to number 10 and watch it through number 12. And you'll see exactly how they pull this off. When you leave the movie theater, you're almost punch drunk. You leave the movie theaters with your breast filled, wanting to be the hero, or wanting to be the damn damsel in distress, wanting to be the corny white girl that fall down at every damn horror flick. Are you following me? So we have to understand it. So now to the small screen, they keep the small screens filled with nonsense. Channel Zero, I wrote a song with Public Enemy. Channel Zero is what we call it, which actually amounts to absolutely nothing. I don't care if it's the daytime stories or these unreality shows or MTV Cribs, Pimp My Ride, or whatever. Absolutely nonsense.
If you watch cable, don't do it because one of the implementations is the box that everybody has to get for your cable TV. And that is one of the ways that they have found out that certain sound waves can control you.
So there are sound waves. Yeah. There's sound waves that come out of the cable box.
So that comes out of your TV.
That come out of your TV.
They can tweak it. They can tweak it to where they can make you feel sad, they can make you feel glad. You know how people have those super harmonious CDs they pop in everything, they feel good?
Yeah. Oh.
It's the exact same thing.
Exact same thing.
And it's very simple, it's very cheap, it works.
And you pay a monthly premium for it.
It's a very simple equation here. They control by controlling the information that people receive. If we are going to, and we are in the process of dismantling this, then alternative information that tells the truth about the movie and exposes it needs to get out there. Now, everyone has got a mouth. Everyone. And everyone's got a voice box, or virtually everyone. And therefore we can articulate and pass this on. And so, it's ridiculous to say there's nothing we can do. We can get onto radio phone-ins on radio shows that don't talk about this and bring those issues into the debate. I think they've realized that there is a challenge coming here. And people are, in increasingly vast numbers, are so open to this. I tell you what it is. This is why it's so important to communicate this stuff. Is the number of people who come across this information that didn't know it existed, and they go, do you know, I've thought that was going on. I've always thought that, but they haven't talked about it. And then they realize that their friends thought like that too, but they haven't talked about it either. We need to start communicating this, and then we'll realize just how many people out there are actually of like mind.
See, the Illuminati says you have to be born of fire. The lower chakras, the lower energy. Are you following me? I'm wrapping this up in a second. He had to be born of fire. And Kanye West, and back me up on this, Kanye West said it recently, didn't he? What did he say? He said he couldn't wait on God. So he sold his soul to the devil.
Artists be too scared to stand up for something. They scared to lose their fucking house. Or they scared to lose their record deal. I sold my soul to the devil.
In other words, he made an oath with the devil. Say music is your life and you controlled by the devil.
Now you see him wearing the Baphomet. Demonic energy. You've heard of Aleister Crowley's slogan, do what thou wilt, is the whole of the law. This is their slogan, all right? Don't pay attention to the laws that were laid out. Pay no attention to God, your elders, your ancestors, but do what thou wilt is the whole of the law.
Submitting to censorship is to enter the seductive world of the giver. The world where there are no bad words and no bad deeds. But it is also the world where choice has been taken away and reality distorted. And that is the most dangerous world of all.
Access denied.
Censorship is the first act of a criminal government desperate to cover its ill-doings from the people that it is controlling. There's no reason for censorship other than to prevent people seeing things which you do not want them to see, which may reveal your own activities. Censorship is a very good indication of the level of corruption your government has degraded to. When censorship is introduced, it is a very good indication that your government has now reached a point where it is completely out of control, and the politicians have backed themselves into a corner so far with their criminal actions that they now need to introduce what is essentially thought crime, which is what censorship is. And of course, the governments always do this in order to cover up their own activities. You know, censorship is introduced not to cover up that which is dangerous or harmful. It's introduced in order to prevent people from ever asking questions that need to be asked. And governments introduce censorship because they do not want their actions questioned. That's just the way it is. And, you know, when the government deems itself to be worthy of dictating what people can or cannot look at, what people can or cannot say, what people can or cannot think, then you have really reached the end of any type of real society at all. In such a situation, there can be no expression of real humanity, there can be no development of genius, no development of new ideas, no thinking outside the box at all. The introduction of censorship is essentially the introduction of thought crime. It is people dictating what you can think, what you can look at, what you can't look at, what is deemed safe for you, what is deemed unsafe for you. Censorship is someone telling you what you can or cannot think, and it is someone else making that decision for you. The introduction of censorship in any society spells a very dangerous time for that society, because history has shown us that first comes the censorship, then comes the disappearances, then comes the imprisonment. You know, censorship is not acceptable in any progressive society. It's not beneficial to a progressive society. It's not beneficial for human development. It doesn't help anybody except those in power who have a lot to hide. And more people need to speak out about this, because approving of censorship of anyone, approving of the silencing of any voice, is approving of the censorship of yourself. That's the way it works. If you're willing to silence one voice, then you're okay with your own voice being silenced. You know, and that might be okay in your situation in the world today, but what if something happens, you actually see something wrong and you want to say something about it and you can't? What do you do then? That's the thing, folks. People don't realize what censorship really means on a personal level, and they need to think about it. You know, freedom for all is freedom for all, and freedom of speech is the most basic foundation of freedom. Without that, you have nothing. So this level of censorship simply is not acceptable. Not under any type of government. Doesn't matter who they are. Because freedom of speech is essential to any functional society. Now, this gives the government the ability to be able to do anything, and it removes us of the ability to be able to sound any warning bells. It completely derails any effort for whistleblowers in the future. It doesn't matter how corrupt any organisation, any government organisation, any type of situation is, nobody will be able to blow the whistle on it, because if they do, reporting the crime will be classed as a crime.
The whole political system, the whole financial system, all of it is such a puppet show, and they're heading us to this really dystopian reality. And it's a spiritual test. What's going on here is a spiritual test, folks. It's a soul test. I mean, the way to get through this is to be in the correct energetic state. But the trick is to be in the correct energetic state through this with everything that's coming, because it's a soul test. And ultimately, you're going to come down to a point where you have to make that choice yourself as to whether to stand your ground. And a lot of people are just standing it now. A lot of people are just saying, no, we're not going to do this anymore. And I don't think they're going to win. I don't think the powers that believe they be have any hope of pulling off what they want to do. I think too many people are going to push back. I think too many people are already. I think they've moved too fast. I think they've had to move this fast out of necessity. I don't think they wanted to, but they have to. Just tell you to prepare for what's coming, folks. But keep a positive attitude to it all. You can't think that they've won. You can't think that it's all just a foregone conclusion and things are going to go to where the powers that believe they be want them to go, because such is not the case at all. I already reckon they've moved way too fast, and I think they've done so out of necessity, because they know the wheels are falling off. They know they're in trouble. They know that there's a lot of people waking up, a lot of people pushing back. I mean, the way they've done this, they've red-pilled most of the world themselves. So many people are getting it now. So many people are speaking out about it now. So many people are just not prepared to do what they're told anymore. And that's a really good thing to see. All, of course, because of the media enablers. That's how they're able to do it. And we've got to stop pussyfooting around with these people, folks. We really do. We've got to realise that we can't be nice about this anymore. We've got to start calling these people out.
It's such an important time in history, and we've got to keep pushing back, because the people that are doing this, they don't take days off, and that's why we shouldn't be taking days off either. Those of us who are awake, we need to keep pushing this, folks. It's a very, very important time. People really don't see what this system has the potential of becoming and really what it's going to lead to, and it's imperative that they wake up to it. It really is. And trying to find ways to combat this, really it all comes down to getting the information to people, and this is where the mainstream media has truly failed on the most phenomenal scale ever witnessed in media history, I would suggest. I mean, the mainstream media is so far off target in what they've been reporting on the news. I mean, they've always been bad, and the media was constructed in order to be the government watchdog. The media was constructed in order to blow the whistle on government misdoings and to tell us, we the people, what is actually going on in the world. But all the media does now is feed us what the government tells them they should feed us. And it is so far from the truth that it has become an absolute parody of reality. It really has. There's no truth anywhere in the mainstream media. But it is getting quite desperate, folks. I mean, it's important that people really do pay attention to these things, and it's ridiculous, folks. We need to start taking things into hand ourselves, and we don't need violence or anything like that. All we need to do is make our voices heard. Be prepared to talk to your neighbours, be prepared to talk to your community, be prepared to go and make a bit of a noise at public gatherings and a bit of a noise at some of these government meetings, and let them know that we're not happy, let them know that we're going to start taking action against them, and that we've figured out what's going on. But all of this has been planned, all of this has been long orchestrated. We never really look at the bigger picture, and I really do wonder what on earth is really going on here. But that's what appears to be happening, And when you see that the underlying fabric of this society is based on fear, I mean, all of it is based on fear, fear-based mind control, it's the whole thing, folks. Just the way we have to worry about survival so much and gathering the paper we need to pay to be alive and getting these little pennies to put in our money boxes and, in fear of the concrete jungles we live in. Everything about this system, this whole reality is an emotional mirror. And this is how it works, folks. And when you really see this and you begin to truly understand the power of emotion, you can see how we could so easily get out of this mess. This is what I've often said, we could change the world in 3 seconds. If there was a worldwide epiphany and everyone simply changed their perspective, we could literally change the world that quickly. 3 seconds, we could all be doing something different. Is that going to happen? No, because there probably won't be this worldwide epiphany. But that doesn't mean it isn't possible that we can do this. That doesn't mean that isn't how powerful our minds are, because our minds are incredibly powerful. And this is why technology isn't even really the threat. You know, the scrying mirrors and this whole smart system isn't really the threat. It's our inability to deal with it in the right way. It's our inability to love ourselves and to love each other through this. Now, something that's really happened with the internet, by giving everybody a soapbox and allowing everybody to have an opinion, there's been an incredible amount of hatred and trolling and energy harvesting from people online. If we can just see this in ourselves and see this perfection in ourselves, then all the barriers break down with other people and we can change the world in a day. The real way out of this system is for people to simply love each other, respect each other, allow other people to think differently. Don't tolerate what these governments are doing. Don't tolerate for voices to be silenced, even if you don't like what someone's saying. All this censorship and all this stuff, it's not acceptable, folks. And just calling this for what it is, but doing it not from a state of aggression, but doing it from a state of love and doing it from a state of respect and steadfastness. That's how to do it, folks. We've got to learn how to simply stand in what we are, folks, because that's how we change the world, you know. But again, it's not going to come until you learn how to love yourself.
This is going to eviscerate microbial DNA inside human beings, which is our effective operating system, number one. So it may not impact human DNA in laboratory experiments right now, and they're saying it doesn't impact human DNA. But given that human DNA is less than 1% of the cellular DNA in the human body, the rest of the cellular DNA is microbial, and we know that this will eviscerate microbial DNA. So we're talking about a takedown of the operating system of human beings.
Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself.
John Brandt.
Good morning, Mr. Brandt. Wow, this is Amanda from Virginia.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I've been trying to get a hold of you for months now. You guys are covering up chemtrails.
No, we are not covering it. We have no reason to cover up chemtrails.
Of course, you have every reason to cover it up. Every reason. It's called
what
losing your job.
What reasons would that be?
Oh, well, you personally, you would lose your job if you were to reveal anything to me, and it's probably unsafe for you to even be speaking about this, considering the types of individuals you work for.
It's not unsafe.
It is unsafe.
There's no problem with us talking on. You're a citizen. You're making a complaint.
Oh, Lord, have mercy on myself.
It's a complaint in an area that we don't have authority to regulate.
So the connection between chemtrails and 5G.
It's all interconnected. The metallized particulates that would allow the 5G phased array, so basically the radar, that would allow it to be able to identify you, so it can watch you, it can identify you in your own home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
For the last X amount of years, we've been through chemtrailing, and that is now the cat is out of the box. We've had these nanoparticulates raining down on humanity for years now, impregnating our bodies, by best accounts staying inside our bodies. Those nanoparticulates, what you're saying, are building up a kind of a phosphorescence glow capability so that we can be flagged up in our homes, behind concrete and steel, inside bunkers, in the basement, doesn't matter where you are. The 5G will be able to now triangulate, map and read you, because you as a living being are impregnated with these nanoparticulates, which are acting as a kind of transmission and reception technology.
It's absolutely exactly.
You have to consider that DNA also works as a fractal antenna, which is able to send and receive and also to process signals under the form of radio frequencies. Well, then there is no doubt that artificial radio frequencies, such as those of cell towers, and in particular these new types of towers that have a much higher density of signals, they may somehow interfere with the ability of DNA to retain and transmit biological signals. So this is one level of danger that very few biologists are aware of.
how much effort was put forward to address this, what most of these people are, or many of these people are here for, which are the health concerns. Was there any dialogue back and forth? Was there any working? Was there many studies evaluated to look at regarding this area?
Maybe not every person that has concerns on the legislation was brought to the table.
Okay, so from your perspective, you feel that there was a legitimate amount of time to evaluate the data that the opposition would have on this?
Absolutely, and I wouldn't put forth something that I didn't believe in. And I'll tell you, as I mentioned earlier, and it's been commented several times amongst the panel here, this is truly an economic development issue. Our 3-year-old, again at home, is outraged when we pull out the driveway and he's not able to access Wi-Fi.
I think anyone who puts Wi-Fi into a school should be locked up for the rest of their life. I really do. I think they're not fit to walk on the surface of this planet because they haven't looked at the research, and whatever incentive they have, it is not worth the genetic problems that parents are going to face with their children when they're born.
France has banned Wi-Fi in nursery schools and put warnings out for regular schools because they're finding there's impaired learning capacity in children when they're around Wi-Fi. And they have to put up warning signs where they put Wi-Fi transmitters.
When I got sick and I learned that they're putting Wi-Fi in the schools in Israel, I was very sick at the time, but I could not tolerate the thought that children in the schools will become as sick as I have. And after a few months of correspondence, I submitted a Supreme Court case in Israel to ban the use of Wi-Fi in the schools and replace them with wired network. The 4 top diseases that kill our children, our young adults right now, are brain tumors, thyroid cancer, testis cancer, rectal cancer, everywhere we put our cell phones. And a lot of our children are sick and they're being misdiagnosed and mistreated because the wireless industry has put billions and billions of dollars in the past 30 years to mislead the public as to the health effects and keep the public uninformed.
We are performing an experiment on children. We are exposing children to microwave radiation for 6 hours during every school day. We have had absolutely no studies looking at the long-term effects of this radiation on young people or even on adults.
A considerable amount of research shows that developing brains and bodies of children are much more affected than adults. And there are clear indications of a link between increased electromagnetic fields and autism spectrum disorders.
We took 10 autistic children and went back to the sleeping location where the mother was when she was pregnant with that child and compared it with the sleeping location of a mother that gave birth to healthy children. We had 10 mothers in that group, 10 mothers in this group, and in the group of the autistic children we found that the measurements that we got for the microwave exposure was elevated compared to the group of children that were normal. The fetus is affected. The exposure to man-made electromagnetic fields has become the first factor that could be isolated ever in autism that could predict autism.
The 5th generation of wireless technology, or 5G as it's being rolled out worldwide without safety testing. Let me say that again, without safety testing. And how we've got scientists and doctors and environmental organizers saying, stop this. Because in terms of the effects of wireless radiation, the science is in. Wireless radiation can lead to cancerous heart tumors, brain tumors, DNA damage. Wireless radiation is linked to infertility, to autism, Alzheimer's, and more. And guess what? All the effects that I just listed, those are some of the effects that are known according to the technology that's being seen today.
First of all, you have to know that we know that the other EMFs that we're exposed to are already known to be health risks. And basically that 5G, because of the frequency that's going to be used and because of the extraordinarily high pulsation levels that will be used, is a much bigger threat to our health than the things that we already have, which are very substantial threats to our health. We're not just talking about the intensity. We're talking about the frequency and the very high level of pulsations. There's a huge literature which shows that pulsed EMFs that pulse up and down very rapidly, are in most cases much more biologically active than our non-pulsed EMFs. Every single wireless communication device communicates via pulsations, but the industry completely ignores this issue. The problem with 5G is that they're planning to put out tens of millions of these antennae all over the place without doing one single biological safety test.
Are you implying possibly that we, the consumers, are the guinea pigs since they haven't really done tests to see the effects in a smaller setting?
I mean, that's not an implication, it's a statement. We are, yes.
Cancer is not the main concern that I have. I'm really concerned about sperm count and about effects on pregnancy.
How many of you know that 1 in 6 American couples is unable to have a child when they want to? How many of you know that last year the birth rate in this country dropped the most that it ever has in recent history, 3% in a single year?
People look at the sperm, and people use cell phones, and the sperm, usually sperm swim, and they swim straight. But if you expose them to radio frequency, mobile phone waves, they swim in a circle.
Studies have been done here in Australia, taking sperm from healthy men. And one test tube gets exposed to cell phone radiation, and one test tube is not exposed to mobile phone radiation. And then the results are evaluated. And this is a measure of vitality. We measure how well the sperm swim. This is a measure of motility. This is a measure of mitochondrial DNA damage. They have 3 times as much damage on their DNA if they have been exposed to mobile phone radiation. The data on that are rock solid. Cell phones can damage sperm quantity and quality.
Your embryo, your uterus in the fetus, where your child is developing for the first 100 days, in the ovaries, the eggs do not have that protection. So they are at maximum risk from radiation. And for the first month or so, you wouldn't even know you were pregnant. You wouldn't even be taking precautions. That is the main danger area. So you give birth to a daughter, but her ovaries are now contaminated. She may be normal, she may be genetically damaged, but her ovaries are at the most risk. So when your daughter grows up and she becomes pregnant and has a baby, this is where one of these eggs will be fertilized and come out. So the real damage here is your grandchildren. That is where it is going to show
Heard
most.
saying he's in the middle of the ocean on a ferry. He says no land or boats were nearby and questions, what is this? Online, the video has gone viral, with many speculating it's likely the military, while others believe it's more evidence we are not alone in the universe. According to the National UFO Reporting Center, North Carolina is considered one of the most active places in the country for UFO sightings.
Who would have known?
What do you think, Mike?
Well, at first I thought maybe those were Chinese lanterns because at night, they kind of glow.
Yeah.
But it's still far away,
pretty far
and it's out to sea, so it's not that. And others have chimed in and said it's some military flares.
Right.
I don't know.
I was thinking drones, but then it's
No,
far away. I don't
and,
think so.
And from what I read in the article a few days ago, the lights went out, and then 2 minutes later they came back on.
Just a few weeks ago, the Navy admitted for the first time that several UFO videos were real, meaning they show actual area phenomenon that so far the Pentagon cannot explain.
And it's really at that point we'll be able to make some sort of definitive conclusion, keeping in mind that we still have to follow the scientific process and methods, and at the same time have peer review. So it's not just as simple as coming out and saying, hey, look what we found. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done.
I bet that's right, and of course should be challenged as you ought to be challenged, I think.
Flying objects caught on camera by the U.S. Navy, some of them off the California coast, have baffled people around the world. Tonight, the military is finally admitting they have no idea what they are.
Navy calls them an unidentified aerial phenomena. and confirms they are real.
It's rotated.
As we both looked out the right side of our airplane, we saw a disturbance in the water and a white object, oblong, pointing north.
The U.S. Navy aircraft recorded the objects during a training mission. A commander says they looked like 40-foot-long Tic Tacs that changed direction very rapidly.
This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. The ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
They are the U.S. Navy videos that have made the rounds on the internet.
My gosh.
And had the world speculating on what the military had captured. The unidentified flying objects even had the Navy pilots wondering what they were looking at.
It's rotated.
Officials argue these videos were never supposed to be released to the public, but yet they were. Here we are talking about it.
Or as Navy spokesman Joseph Gratishuk put it, the Navy considers the phenomena contained or depicted in these 3 vids as unidentified. It's not to say they're alien craft, of course. But here is one of those UFOs. This is footage shot in 2004 from a US military aircraft. And you'll see that video changing the focus briefly. The object jumps up in size just to see better before whatever it is they're filming takes off to the left. And then, of course, 4 years ago, there was another unidentified object which astonished the US pilots. The Vice Chairman of the US Senate Intelligence Committee says this is being investigated, although President Donald Trump is not so impressed.
Well, I think some of the press reports are accurate. I think people are taking this issue much more seriously, and I'm not going to get into any of the contents of the briefing. It was a classified briefing.
I want them to think whatever they think. They do say, I mean, I've seen and I've read and I've heard, and I did have one very brief meeting on it, but people are saying they're seeing UFOs. Do I believe it? Not particularly.
So the U.S. government is admitting that they have no idea what these things are, that they're probably not some Russian superplane. And nobody's paying attention to this. I mean, this seems like a watershed moment. I mean, we have all this tape of objects defying the known laws of physics right next to U.S. military installations. The military admits it. Why is this not page 1 news everywhere?
They can't deny that there are sightings as such. Whether that happens to be, anything out of this earth is yet to be determined.
Boom noises outside Bloomington. Well, they're actually waking people up almost every night.
A lot of people wondering about this. They're fed up, and tonight they want answers. Fox 59's Mike Sullivan went to Bloomington to find out what could be behind these mysterious noises.
We're all afraid of what goes bump in the night.
To me, it sounds like really loud fireworks.
Like a shotgun times 10.
I'm thinking cannon. The unexplained, the unidentified, that keeps children awake.
No, definitely not a firecracker. This is definitely worldly. Like, it feels like a big boom.
Well, some in Cleveland's Slavic Village neighborhood are hearing something go boom in the night. It comes with unexplained flashes in the night sky. And that boom, it's big enough to rattle windows and the nerves of dozens of homeowners. The source of this mystery is creating plenty of speculation on social media as well.
Developing tonight, a mystery boom that has people buzzing. Neighbors from Lavernia to Karnes City say they heard a loud explosion. Now everyone is speculating what it could have been.
What I've heard like a loud bang, like a boom. Almost sounds like a bomb at times. No, definitely not a firecracker. This is definitely worldly. Like, it feels like a big boom.
Dozens of Cleveland Slavic Village residents like Edward McDonald now reporting mysterious sonic blasts at all hours of the night, shaking their neighborhood.
Back there in that corner, which is, I don't know,
65th and Fleet.
Some of the blasts captured on video outdoor home security cameras and posted on YouTube and Facebook.
Ready? See that?
First showing a flash, lighting up the night sky in Slavic Village, and then seconds later, an accompanying blast. The phenomenon getting plenty of comments on the Fleet Broadway Slavic Village Facebook page, with residents only able to guess where the flashes of light and explosions are coming from.
It shakes houses, it rattles windows. It hasn't caused any destruction yet, or it hasn't caused any property damage, but it definitely is noticeable.
Earthquakes, military drills, or blown transformers. Whatever it is, the mystery booms we first reported last week on the Wake-Franklin County line are still happening.
A homeowner I'd spoken with last week reached out saying she heard a blast just last night. That's why we came out here today, hoping to finally get to the bottom of this.
It sounds like a firebomb.
Neighbors say the loud booms happen late at night or early in the morning. They're powerful enough to shake homes and wake people up.
Pretty loud sound. It's more than you might get with, say, thunderstorm.
It's not a gunshot because we hear gunshots here all the time. We hear rifles.
People in and around the Barham Place subdivision along the Wake County-Franklin County line say it's been going on for about a month.
It's a little bit frustrating for people in the neighborhood that are experiencing it.
That's why Will Brooks and others reached out to CBS 17. I tried to figure out what's behind it. I started with NCDOT and the 401 widening project. They say it's not them. Duke Energy tells me they're not responsible. I also called Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. They say this area isn't in their flight path. So I went to the National Weather Service.
The only thing that really comes to mind would be a thunderstorm. And we have not had any thunderstorms here in the Raleigh area in probably a couple of months now.
Scott Sharp is a lead forecaster. He looked into it for us.
It looks like these booms that people are hearing cannot really be explained by any kind of meteorological phenomenon.
Neighbors say they've spoken with a geologist at NC State. No luck there either. Now, the Wake County Sheriff's Office confirms they have received several more calls about this over the last week. They, too, have no idea what is causing these large booms or blasts.
I'm going to say 4 or 5, maybe 6 times a week. You know, it's random.
The mysterious booms haunting neighbors for the past 2 weeks, leaving everyone on edge.
The neighbor's dog, she starts pacing in the early evening because she knows it's coming.
Nearly every neighbor has a guess, but few know a boom like Ronnie Campbell.
Been around quite a bit of it.
During a tour in Afghanistan as an infantry medic, his truck was hit by an RPG.
It just blew the front end of the truck apart, blew the wheels off the side.
His hearing hasn't been the same since, but that noise still reaches his bedroom.
It's gonna be more like your cannonball.
Neighbors keep gesturing, saying it's over there, suggesting here, near Kirksville and Harmony Road.
It rattles the whole wall.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole house shakes when it happens.
Vanessa joins us live from Lavernia. Vanessa, what are law enforcement and first responders telling you about this boom?
Well, Deb, county authorities said that this just doesn't make sense. And as for some of those theories like a sonic boom, Joint Base San Antonio said it wasn't them. And there's also another theory about a local company that may be using explosives to test materials. But we reached out to that company and they said, nope, wasn't us either. And as for that theory about an earthquake, well, Deb, there's been no seismic activity reported in this area.
Very strange. All right, Vanessa.
In tonight's Health Watch, could your smartphone be causing you or your children to grow horns?
Sounds absurd, but it's a serious question being posed.
It's really scary. It's a big find. It's a big sign. It tells us that we're changing. I mean, we're changing the physical aspects of human beings.
It only takes a few minutes of taping on the street to see dozens of people in that familiar 21st century position, head forward, craning to see what's on their phones. When you realize that the human head weighs about 10 pounds, and for every inch it tilts forward, you double the pressure on your spine, pretty soon your neck is straining against a 20 or 30 pound weight.
Well, it's kind of surprising that our bodies are being impacted by today's technology. You've heard of other ailments like text neck and texting thumb. Now we can add these horn-like structures to the list. Now, the researchers who discovered these growths are referring to them as prominent exostosis emanating from the external occipital protuberances. Those are just fancy scientific words meaning that there's a bone spur found at the base of the skull.
It does look sort of like a horn, but actually this is a bone spur near the base of the skull.
A new study by Australian researchers say they've found bone spurs.
Researchers in Australia examined hundreds of x-rays and found that roughly 40% of people 18 to 30 years old who use their phones more than 4.5 hours a day develop the growth. The likely cause? All that hunching over, sending texts and checking social media.
Do you find yourself on your phone a lot? Yeah, I'm addicted because it's obsessive and you're like that and your body's all like screwed up.
They say smartphones and other handheld devices are contorting the human form. Physiatrist Dr. Lauren Fishman says bone spurs from neck pain are not all that surprising.
Any overuse of a tendon inclines one to a calcification. The overuse and the consequent inflammation just seems to bring about calcification some of the time.
In looking for the future of man and machine becoming one in what some futurists refer to as a singularity, scientists may have overlooked another one. Another way that technology is changing our actual bodies. Think about this. Technology may also be affecting more than just our bone structure. It could be altering our nerves in our brain. Experts now believe that texting and voice to text specifically could be limiting young adults' ability to read and write.
Until the age of about 24, 25, our brains neurologically are not fully formed. And so the ages in question, let's say between 9 and 17, these kids are not actually getting enough practice to utilize the neurotransmitters in their brain, the wiring that's not being utilized so that they can get used to the proper way of speaking.
According to Professor Jane Mullanby of Oxford University, the ability to understand and use complex language was essential for academic attainment, leaving youngsters without these skills at a serious disadvantage. Her research cited examples of text speak, including a 13-year-old's phone message that read, "OMG, IKR," meaning, "Oh my God, I know, right?" And a 21-year-old's message to a friend, "Yo, dude, are you still coming to party Friday?"
I worry about that because I think that when our verbiage becomes more colloquial and filled with signs and images, we forget the proper way of speaking, and we forget that communication is not just through slang, but also through important eye contact and picking up the energy between two people.
Tonight, lawmakers are adding to antitrust troubles for the likes of Facebook, Google, and Apple.
YouTube has again shuffled about its hate speech and discrimination policy. This follows a sidestep, a moonwalk, 2 somersaults, and a backflip.
Today we're taking another step in our hate speech policy by specifically prohibiting videos alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination, segregation or exclusion based on qualities like age, gender, race, caste, religion, sexual orientation or veteran status.
If that was any more vague, it might as well have been fog, mist, or a cloud, perhaps. It's really that vague. Videos alleging a group is superior. Gosh, according to that statement, the hammer of politically correct judgment is about to fall on Peter.
The news of an antitrust investigation loomed over this year's Apple Worldwide Developers Conference. Federal antitrust regulators, according to CBS News, are pursuing investigations into Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon.
I'm kind of concerned, like everybody, are people becoming monopolistic and reducing competition?
David Neal works in the tech industry and is attending this year's WWDC. He believes the government should keep a watchful eye for bad practices, but not necessarily break up big tech.
We should look at times where maybe they're stifling the market and killing competition. On the other hand, if companies are innovating and doing new things, we have to be very careful not to stifle that.
The United Nations Secretary General has formally launched a strategy and plan of action on hate speech. The launch comes after a disturbing groundswell of intolerance, racism and xenophobia and hate-based violence targeting worshippers of many faiths. The UN strategy and plan of action is billed as an ambitious program to coordinate efforts across the UN system to identify, prevent and confront hate speech.
The United Nations says hate speech has gained a foothold and is spreading like wildfire. But the UN boss believes it's on notice, putting in place a strategy he hopes will get buy-in from all member states.
In both liberal democracies and authoritarian regimes, some political leaders are bringing the hate-fueled ideas and language of these groups into the mainstream, normalizing them, coarsening the public discourse and weakening the social fabric. Hate speech is in itself an attack on tolerance, inclusion, diversity, and the very essence of our human rights norms and principles. More broadly, it undermines social cohesion, erodes shared values, and can lay the foundation for violence, setting back the cause of peace, stability, sustainable development, and the fulfillment of human rights for all.
Guterres laid out two overriding objectives for the plan. First, to enhance efforts to address the root causes of hate speech that include violence, marginalization, discrimination, poverty, and a lack of education, among others, aspects that the current 2030 development agenda seek to address.
But it does raise an interesting point. Who the hell are YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter? Are they platforms for people to chat on, express themselves? Or are they censors, moral police responsible for how and what you say? Neither, apparently. If they start enforcing their own policies, no matter how vaguely, we'll stop hearing about the best country in the world, the freest country in the world, the greatest country in the world.
He says, Daily Wire fellas, I'm proud of my Mexican ancestry, but also am proud of my American nationality. How do I balance these two things?
Super simple. Celebrate Cinco de Mayo because you are proud of your Mexican heritage. Believe that it is Mexico's Independence Day because you have American nationality.
Now, let's be honest. YouTube overlords didn't update their rules to take down America is great videos. But given that the rules are now so ambiguous they can be used to take down anything, what chance do even remotely political or controversial videos stand? Or, dare I say it, anything anti-establishment?
Today we learned that Twitter and Facebook are ramping up efforts to clamp down on what they say is offensive or hateful content. But who gets to decide what's hateful or offensive? That in a corporate state such as the one in which we live here, where corporations and the government, regularly concentrate to, collect their power, censorship by corporations isn't so different than censorship by the government, is it? Because in the case of Facebook, let's just talk about that for a second. They're in an outright partnership with the Atlantic Council, which is funded by NATO. It's a DC think tank. Some of the most prominent think tanks in the world are partnering with these so-called private companies. So are we even talking about the First Amendment? I feel like we might be.
But let's go back. The antecedent aspect about this. If you look back at how DARPA and InQtel and other particular forces, platforms were responsible for this. But let me give you a new idea. Let's look at this almost like a utility. By virtue of the fact, Michelle, that let's say 80%, 90% of the people on the planet use these platforms. I don't think this is some mom and pop organization. What if you were on your phone, whatever your carrier, and you said something, and all of a sudden your phone dropped? And you called back again, and you repeated it at a phone call, and you found out that Sprint or Verizon, whoever it was, found that your statement was hateful or violated its terms. You would say, wait a minute, you're a phone carrier. You're not endorsing what I'm saying. This is what we have to treat these almost as though they're a utility. Businesses, well, this show, they're using these platforms. You got to get rid of this ridiculous model that that Mark Zuckerberg is just some guy who owns this little diner in Collinsville, Illinois, and he's just a businessman. And if you don't like Facebook, go someplace else. Where? If you don't like Google, go someplace where. This model has to change immediately.
Right. I mean, this is the situation with monopoly capitalism. Now, if I'm a government and I want to stop something from getting out, if I want to stop people from learning, a piece of news, a monopoly like Facebook is a huge gift to me. All I have to do is keep control of one company, so it totally makes sense.
Have you ever thought of how often you Google things? This noun that suddenly turned into a verb is as much a part of our lives as just about anything we use or ever come in contact today. And it's good, right? Hey, think about it. It's useful, saves us a ton of time, and because we learned from it, stuff we never knew. Boom, Google, there it is. Now I know. Here's the problem. I don't know if you guys have thought about this. It also shapes and creates our reality, our truth. In other words, how do we know that what we get from Google is really the best description, the reality about this particular topic that we may have just, well, Googled?
We thank you for watching this video and ask you to spread the news. Put this video on your social network or link to it so that you can be part of the anonymous movement. Together we are strong. Together we are anonymous.